Our journey today is to an interesting South American country. It is famous as the best country to live in on the continent, and is often called the Switzerland of South America. Yes, compared to developed countries, Uruguay may not rank at the top, but compared to all other Latin American countries, it is the best place to live, as well as having relatively good financial stability. The country pays great attention to freedom, innovation, and democracy, which cannot be said for most countries on the continent. For sure there are downsides, for sure there will be people who won't like it, or have already been there and didn't like it, but you should definitely get to know this country. Uruguay, officially the Eastern Republic of Uruguay, is a country located in the southern part of South America. It borders Brazil to the north, Argentina to the west and south, and the Atlantic Ocean to the southeast. The country has an area of 177,400 square kilometers with a population of about 3.5 million inhabitants. Its capital is Montevideo, which is home to 1.5 million inhabitants. The official language here is Spanish, and the majority of the inhabitants are Roman Catholics, but there are also a large number of people who have declared themselves atheists. The official currency is the Uruguayan peso, which as of 2023, $1 equals about 39 pesos. In the years before European colonizers came to the continent, the country was inhabited by Indians, but in the 17th century Portuguese and Spanish colonizers conquered its territory. Later, in 1726, the city of Montevideo was founded as the main port, and the British Empire also made attempts to conquer part of the country's territory. In the 19th century, numerous clashes followed with the Brazilians, who tried to annex the country, but without success, and in 1828, Uruguay managed to win its independence. At the end of the 19th century, Uruguay completed its formation as a democratic state and achieved remarkable economic and social successes. The country became one of the first to establish the right to divorce by law, as well as the right of women to vote. It is also the second country in the world to regulate compulsory and free primary education by law. After a major economic crisis in the 1950s, the country fell into the trap of a political crisis that lasted until 1985, followed by dictatorial regimes, military coups, and riots in the country's streets. After thousands of arrests and discontent on the part of the people, in the early 1980s, the military began to gradually withdraw from power, giving way to democratic parties. In fact, a similar fate has unfortunately befallen almost all countries on the continent. The country is warm for most of the year, with annual average temperatures of around 20 to 24 degrees Celsius, with mild winters where temperatures drop to as low as 10 to 12 degrees Celsius. As I told you, quite a few Uruguayans are not very religious, and holidays like Christmas or Easter are not marked with special celebrations. An interesting feature of the people here is their respect for meat dishes, as grilling is one of the favorite things for Uruguayans. If you see a group of people grilling on the street of a busy city, don't be surprised, because they really do it very often. If you want to witness the traditional Desfile de la Matas Carnival, where you can really experience the Uruguayan culture, visit Montevideo in January and February when the festival takes place. The country also organizes a rodeo festival every year, in which Argentine, Brazilian and Uruguayan competitors compete for the title of Best Cowboy. The festival is one of the most popular in the country and is visited by over 500,000 people every year. Due to the geographical position of the country, which is located between Brazil and Argentina, features of the cultures of these two countries can be seen here. However, we must say that Argentine culture prevailed, and today Uruguay and Argentina show a high percentage of similarities in culture. This is due to the fact that both countries speak Spanish, unlike Brazil, where the official language is Portuguese. Argentinians and Uruguayans speak Spanish with the same dialect, and if by chance two citizens of both countries meet and do not specify where they are from, they would hardly know that they are actually from two different countries. Now let's move on to the present to see how Uruguay managed to become the best country to live in South America. After the democratic changes dating back to 1985, the country began slowly but surely to enter the path of democracy, and at the beginning of the 21st century it began to collect the first fruits of the changes. By its constitution, Uruguay is a presidential republic. It is the most democratic country in Latin America, which, according to a report by the British magazine The Economist, ranks 27th out of a total of 167 countries surveyed. It also has one of the lowest levels of corruption. The country's governance managed to keep pace with global trends in the early 21st century by starting infrastructure modernization and making a smooth transition from manufacturing and small-scale agriculture to increasing monoculture agriculture and services such as finance and tourism. Electricity in the country is mainly provided by wind turbines, hydroelectric power stations, and solar panels. In recent years, a trend for the development of the IT sector has also been observed, as the country already has several large local companies with good developments that are attracting interest all over the world. Plastic exports are also an important part of the economy, and with several major investments in the 1990s, the Uruguayan economy saw good growth. With the growth of trade unions in the country, workers' rights are also well protected by law. Although the country is mostly visited by citizens of South American countries, in recent times there has been a growth in tourists from beyond the continent. The average wage in the country is around $500, with better paid people earning between $850 and $1,200, and prices in Uruguay are significantly higher than other South American countries. Education in the country is free from preschool to high school. Uruguay is the first country to provide laptops to all students. This step was taken so that all students in different parts of the country can benefit from the same quality of education and there is no division in the poorer and underdeveloped areas. The project significantly improved education in the country, receiving a number of international awards and being borrowed by a dozen countries. Healthcare is developed, but we must note that it can be very expensive for tourists if you need to use medical care. One of the most famous political figures in the country is undoubtedly José Mujica, who was the president of the country between 2010 and 2015 and became known as the poorest head of state in the world. In his past, he was part of a partisan organization defending far-left politics, and during his years as a partisan he was wounded many times and spent about 15 years in prison. During his years as head of state, Mujica declared his financial situation every year, which included one small apartment, a small villa outside the city and 2 cars, and he gave 90% of his salary to charities. In an interview given to BBC, Mujica said that for most of his life he lived poor and 10% of his salary was enough to be happy. The most common vehicle used by the president was a 1987 Volkswagen Beetle, for which he claimed Arab sheiks had offered over $1 million. If you are wondering if Uruguay is a modern country, I will simply tell you that it is. Regarding same-sex relationships, Uruguay is one of the most tolerant countries, and as early as 1934, the law prohibiting same-sex relationships was repealed. People with a different sexual identity are absolutely full citizens and can adopt children, as well as get positions in state institutions and the army. The cultivation, sale, and consumption of marijuana is allowed in the country, and every citizen has the right to purchase 10 grams for personal consumption per week. In general, freedom here is the main priority of both the state and its residents. As I mentioned a while ago, tourism is becoming an increasingly important priority for the state. In order to attract more foreign tourists, the state has an interesting policy, such as a tourist who makes a payment with a card from a foreign bank can get a discount of 20%. The country's coastline and beautiful oceanfront beaches are becoming increasingly attractive, and Punta del Este, also known as the Uruguayan Monaco, is a great holiday destination, with South America's wealthiest and most influential people often staying in the city. If you like our content, subscribe to the channel and expect many more interesting videos.